Hey, this is McGarren, just giving you a quick little preview on line quality and also design and line quality because that's some important stuff. All right, first off, we'll talk about what is a line. Here I have my workspace set up in Painter. If you go into Window and you go to Workspace, I have it set up as Painting. And that gives me my colors, my paintbrushes, and my layers all in one view, which is very important to be able to know. So I'm going to go and start off with a paintbrush, create a new layer, and this is what we're going to work on. So the important thing to know about a line is two-dimensional. It has a width and a length. And there's not really a three-dimensional surface to it, so it doesn't have any depth to it. So how can we use a line, just simple like this, to describe depth? If I have this horizontal line sitting here, so we'll just have a line sitting there, and I want to describe that it's going back into space, that this line is a horizon, I will get two lines. Look what happens if I make them parallel with each other. So parallel with each other, nothing really happens. If I make them go closer together as they're going back, all of a sudden it looks like it's going back into space. Like eventually it will hit this horizon line and disappear. The other way that you can describe depth through line is by making it a little bit wider in some areas and more narrow in others. And if I make it more bold at one point and then taper and make it more thin at the other point, it will describe space just as much as two lines that are not parallel with each other will. This, if it's a bolder, thicker line, will come more forward. If it's a thinner, crisp line, then it goes back into space. So if you have that general understanding that you're dealing with two dimensions, width and length, and you can play with that width or length, then you can describe depth in a space with simple lines. So let's move over to this drawing that I've done. I did it in Photoshop with a small pen tool. It is called the technical pen, and it's just a bunch of scribbles. I have not committed to anything in here, but I'm liking where this design is going. There's a lot of weight that's down in the bottom right hand corner. There's focus that goes to the left because of all these lines that are going into that direction. So in order to make this more interesting, I'm going to vary the line quality. And how do I do that? First off, I have this layer drawn in. If I hide it by pressing the I button, hides it, bring it back. I'm going to go and create a new layer by clicking on this little box. It'll have a plus sign inside of it, or it will look like a page that is kind of flipping at the corner. So I can click on that. There are a couple of things that I want you to know when you're working on this. Make sure that you're selected onto your new layer and there's nothing on that new layer. You have your drawing, you either drew it by hand and imported it into Photoshop, or you have it drawn into Photoshop like I did here, and it will create a different layer. I'm going to take this layer and decrease the opacity so that I can see what I'm wanting to draw, but it's not going to be as distracting because now it's just faint. Go back onto this layer, make sure that I'm on black, and I can use the technical pen to do this, or I could use a freehand pencil, like this round hard edge brush. It looks like the transfer is going to change if you have a pen for your space. If you don't have a pen, you just have a mouse that you're creating, the transfer is not going to work. So it's not going to go darker in value to lighter in value based off of the pressure that you push on your pen, because your mouse is binary. It's just click, unclick. So it keeps it simple. It's only one value that it's going to create. But if you have a pen and you want to change it, click on this nice little folder. It'll bring up your options, and you just turn off transfer. When you turn off transfer, it will make it so it's more of a solid shape. I can turn on shape dynamics, and the control here, if I turn it up to pen pressure, it will change the diameter of my pen. Sometimes it doesn't show up down here and showing the diameter of the pen, but I will just show you to demonstrate. So here I have my big brush. I'm pressing lightly, I push harder and it makes it thicker. I press lightly and it makes it thinner. If I want something a little bit more precise, I'll make the size of my brush a little bit smaller. Oh, and look, it changed it over here now. So it's tapered. And that is what the minimum diameter and the pen pressure will do. So light to thick, thick to light. So you'll get this neat little variation in shape. So that's one thing that you can do. The other thing that you can do is just click on the technical pen. If you have this, which is a technical pen, there are no shape dynamics. It's just a small little brush. If you are creating a design that I have here and I use the technical pen and I click from one point, let's start here. And I go all the way to the back edge, maybe it comes out here, and I press Shift and click again. It will strike, or stroke, one of the two, a line. And I come over to this side and click it here, and over to the corner, and I press Shift and click it, it will stroke another line. So here I'm clicking on that corner and come back into the center and press Shift and stroke another line. So now I have a solid shape. If I like that solid shape and I want to go with it and I don't want it to be organic, I can do the Shift click Shift method, which is what I just demonstrated. Now I can get a paint bucket tool here and I can click in that shape and it will fill in the shape. Or if I come in here and grab the magic wand and click in this shape, it has to be a closed shape for the magic wand to select it. All right, now I can go back to my paintbrush, make the size really big, and paint anywhere in that selection, and it will fill up that shape or line. Then I can do Command D or Control D, depending upon if you have Windows or Mac, and that will deselect those little marching ants. Okay, so that is one way to fill in your shape or paint it. The other way is to go with the hard round and do it freehand, which I think is a little bit more entertaining and you'll get better lines, but sometimes it can be frustrating. So here I'm going to make a smaller brush and I want to get this line. I'm going to softly push on it and push harder and make it up. Oh, transfer is back on. So I have to turn off transfer. I'm going to do, so make sure transfer is off and shape dynamics. I'm going to change that to pen pressure. There we go. So it looks like that shape. So now I'm going to click here, push harder, and stroke it off to the back. So that was one stroke and I have it solid and filled in. Now that I have those two lines, that's all I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and select little areas and draw them in. So maybe I have this line and I want to draw it. But maybe I want it a little bit thicker as it's going back away. And I want to do the opposite for this one. So it'll be thinner on the edge and then thicker as it comes back because I want to kind of change the space there. Now to do circular shapes, all you have to do is grab the selection marquee tool, go from the top of your ellipse and the side of your ellipse, with the highest point and the widest point, and click and drag while it's still being pressed. I'm going to try to line it up with them. I like this variation of all these circles that are here. So I'm going to do one line, and now you see the marching ants that are going around the object. I'm going to go to layer. I'm going to go to edit and stroke. And 4 pixels is pretty light, which is fine. I like that. I'll stroke it on the center and it will be normal and 100% opacity and it'll be black. So I'll press OK. Now it just created an ellipse. I'm going to do Control D or Command D to deselect it and do it again. So here the highest point, the widest point, and I'll click and drag over. And I'll make it just a little bit bigger. And if I grab in the middle here, I think it's too low. So I want to raise it up a little bit and shift it off to the side, and then go back to stroke from edit. And I'll do the same thing. Now I want to create one more. So I'll go to the widest point here and drop it down. And let go, edit, stroke. Okay. So now I just created these various circles sitting back into space, and now I just have to do it with everything else. Command D to deselect. I'm gonna close this off, and you are welcome to watch me do this in a couple of different ways. That's all you have to do with your design. Make sure that it is a good focal design and it describes depth with the line, and the widths need to be varying to describe that depth. This whole thing took me about 20 minutes to be able to do and just line it out. Thing that I'd ask you to do when you're working on these designs, making sure that there are no holes or openings between your lines or shapes. You might have or run into a problem where you take a shape. I'll take my technical pen here and create a shape. Okay, I need to make sure that it is closed off. So there's my shape closed off. And I take the paint bucket tool or the selection tool and try to fill it. If I fill it, I'll get this little white edge that's sitting around where I filled the paint bucket tool. The higher the number you change this tolerance number, the more it's going to fill in that gap. Just make sure that when you are going in and cleaning up your lines, make sure that you don't have those little gaps or holes that are between it. Another alternative is you could just use the paintbrush tool and fill in the shape. Okay, so that's it for my painting, and it's just a matter of cleaning it up and then submitting it for the assignment. Hope this helped, and good luck.